Have you ever seen a person walk into a room and the temperature changes without them saying a word? They do not push or plead or perform. They do not raise their voice. They do not rush to fix the mood. They simply refuse to be summoned, and everything around them starts to reorganize. You feel it before you understand it. Their calm is heavier than other people's chaos. Their boundaries are loud without being spoken. That is not magic. That is energy no longer being rented to whatever shouts the loudest. What if your composure could do that for you? What if the most powerful thing you could add to your life right now is not a new argument, but the removal of your old reactions? You were conditioned to believe that power is loud and visible, that respect must be earned with effort, that you have to explain your goodness before anyone will treat you well. But Carl Jung's work points to a different route. Becoming emotionally untouchable is not about being cold. It is about coherence. It is the practice of withdrawing your psychic energy from the patterns that drain you and investing it into a center that cannot be moved without your consent. Jung called the path individuation, the process of becoming whole, of freeing yourself from the mask you perform for approval and from the reflexes that keep you compliant. It begins with a simple, difficult decision. Your emotions do not get to be public property. Your attention is not an open faucet. Your presence is not an emergency button for everyone else's anxiety. The switch flips the moment you allow your first impulse to rise and fall without feeding it. The moment you stop being predictable, the game changes. People who relied on your instant reaction will suddenly have to face themselves. People who only knew the version of you that apologized before speaking will have to meet someone new. You will feel guilty. They will be irritated. But irritation is not your compass. Integrity is. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves. Use that like a lantern. Notice who panics when you pause. Notice who calls you selfish when you stop explaining. Notice who creates problems to keep you engaged." Their reactions are not proof that you are wrong. They are maps to where your energy has been taken for granted. Withdraw your energy from those maps, and your life begins to reroute. Persona, predictability, and the price of access. From the beginning, you were taught to equate love with access. Be reachable, be agreeable, be helpful, be quick, and you will be safe. That lesson felt like protection, so you wore it like a uniform. You became the person who replies fast, even when exhausted, who says yes with a smile while your stomach tightens, who forgives offenses by inventing explanations for the offender. Jung named the public mask we wear the persona, the social interface we present, so the collective will accept us. It is not evil, it is a tool. But when the mask becomes your face, you forget what your own skin feels like. The persona nods while your truth shakes its head. The persona apologizes for boundaries you should not have to argue. The persona is praised by people who profit from it, and that praise keeps the performance alive long after it has cost you your peace. There is a line few people say out loud because it sounds harsh, and yet living it will set you free. Always available becomes emotionally invisible. What is abundant is rarely valued. What is on demand is treated like a utility. When you provide your attention as an all-you-can-eat buffet, people stop tasting it. They start using you as a regulator for their feelings, a distraction from their boredom, a validator for their choices, a cushion for their consequences. So you end your day depleted and strangely unseen. You were there for everyone, so why does no one seem to be there for you? The answer is not that you are unlovable. The answer is that you trained people to see you as function rather than person. That training can be unlearned. First, acknowledge the illusion at the root of overavailability. The belief that if you are always there for everyone, someone will be there for you. What actually happens is simpler and sadder. You become the emotional emergency button people press when it suits them, and they put you back on the shelf when they have what they came for. This is not because people are monsters. It is because most of us are unconscious until a boundary wakes us up. Second, see how predictability becomes leverage. If they know you will answer, they do not need to examine their timing. If they know you will explain, they do not need to reflect on their accusations. If they know you will absorb, they do not need to own their mess. Predictability makes you useful, and usefulness is not the same as love. Third, decide that kindness without self-abandonment is your new standard. You can be compassionate without being on call. You can be generous without being programmable. You can be supportive without letting people wrench your nervous system. This decision will not please everyone. It will please the part of you that has been waiting years for you to come home. The price of open access was your center. The price of reclaiming your center is other people's temporary disappointment. Pay it. Your soul is too expensive to subsidize everyone else's comfort. Complexes, triggers, and the 90-second gate. You think you are choosing, but very often your choices are being made by your complexes. Jung used that word for clusters of emotionally charged memories that organize your attention, shape your story, and hijack your reaction. Consider the approval complex that makes a raised eyebrow feel like a siren you must silence with over-explaining. Consider the abandonment complex that turns a delayed response into proof that you are about to be left, so you either cling or cut off first. Consider the competence complex that forces you to pre-defend every decision so you cannot be accused of not thinking it through. These patterns move faster than thought. Someone says we need to talk, and a script starts running from a place older than the current relationship. You are not responding to this person anymore. You are responding to your history, to echoes of childhood, to ghosts you trained yourself to pacify. This is not weakness, it is programming. The good news is that programming can be interrupted. The interruption is a gap, and you can train it. When a trigger hits, breathe and name what is happening in plain language. There is the urge to defend. There is the urge to please. There is the urge to run. Then locate the sensation in your body. Maybe your throat is tight, your chest is hot, your jaw clenches. Watch the wave rise, crest, and fall. Neurochemically, most emotional floods peak quickly. If you can survive the crest without acting, you move from being the complex to having the complex. Jung called this holding the tension of the opposites. You feel the pull to fix and the pull to flee. You choose neither. You hold. Hold long enough and something new appears, what Jung called the transcendent function, a third option that was not available when you were trapped inside the old polarity. Maybe the third option is a single sentence instead of a speech. Maybe it is a pause that lets the moment cool. Maybe it is silence that refuses to renew a pattern. With repetition, this gate rewires your default from reaction to response. You begin to trust yourself to feel without handing over your steering wheel. The people around you will feel this change even before you announce it. They will sense that your nervous system is no longer a public device they can access to regulate their feelings. Some will calm down because your calm is contagious. Some will escalate because they only know how to relate through chaos. You do not need to manage either response. Your work is to keep the gate. Projections, guilt, and the alchemy of silence. Most people are not relating to you. They are relating to the role they hope you will play because roles are easier to manage than whole human beings. You become the rescuer who always answers, the peacemaker who absorbs tension, the reliable one who never needs help, the wise one who swallows hurt with a philosophy quote, the strong one who forgets to cry. The more consistently you perform a role, the more others project that role onto you and stop seeing you altogether. They will reward the performance when it serves them and punish you when you break character. The glue that holds this projection contract together is guilt. You do not need to be screamed at to be controlled. You only need to feel that rest is selfish, that silence is rude, that a late reply is a moral failure, that saying not now is proof that you never cared. As long as guilt keeps you performing, no one needs to raise their voice. Here is where silence becomes alchemy. When you stop feeding the role with your reaction, the projection begins to slide off. When you stop explaining, apologizing, and overfunctioning, the old contract dissolves. For a while, this will create confusion and turbulence. People who relied on your predictability will test the boundaries like a swimmer pushing against a new shore. They will accuse you of changing. Good, you have. They will call your reserve coldness. It is not. It is self-respect. They will try to drag you back into a debate about your character, because if you enter that arena, the role reattaches. Do not enter. Jung wrote, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Your silence is not emptiness. It is the space where your unconscious can speak. In that space you will hear your shadow, the parts of you exiled to be acceptable. Maybe you discover that your anger has been living underground, doing damage precisely because you refused it daylight. Maybe you discover a need for reassurance you pretended to outgrow, and because you denied it, it chose bad candidates to supply it. Maybe you discover a craving for control that made you seek chaos because chaos felt familiar. None of this makes you bad. It makes you human. Bringing the shadow home is how you stop outsourcing it to manipulators. Write privately what you have been unwilling to admit aloud. Name the fear, the hatred, the need, the expectation. Then ask yourself, what part of me is this person carrying for me? If they carry your unspoken anger, you reclaim anger and learn to express it cleanly. If they carry your disowned need, you meet it honestly instead of disguising it as generosity. If they carry your hunger for control, you create structure in your own life so you can stop trying to manage their emotions. Silence is not punishment handed to others. It is a sanctuary built for your own depth. Inside it, you will feel misunderstood. You will be called distant by people who only knew how to connect to you through your imbalance. You will want to argue your heart to prove you are not cruel. Do not perform. Let your boundaries speak for you while you build a life that does not require constant defense. The architecture of sovereignty. Emotional sovereignty is not a mood. It is a structure. Without structure, you leak. With structure, you hold. Think of it as a house with 4 essential fences, not instructions to obey, but metaphors for how the self protects its center. The time fence is the end of urgency theater. It is the right to move at a human pace. When time is fenced, you are no longer captured by other people's alarms. You create space for reflection so the nervous system can respond rather than react. The access fence turns your availability from default to deliberate. Access becomes a privilege, not a right. In practice, it looks like designing your environment so your attention cannot be yanked like a light switch. It sounds like silence that arrives without apology. It feels like a room in your mind that only you may enter. The topic fence protects your identity from trial by debate. There are conversations about events and behaviors, and there are conversations that put your essence on the stand. When the frame is an inquisition into your character, sovereignty declines the invitation. Not to dodge responsibility, but to refuse a frame that was built to keep you defending your existence. The energy fence is reciprocity as a law of inner ecology. What you invest must return as respect, clarity, or peace. If it returns manipulation, fog, or chaos, the fence reduces exposure. This is not cruelty, it is conservation. Around and within these fences is language, and language is the locking mechanism. Not scripts to rehearse, but stances that close loops. There is the pause that prevents your life from being lived on other people's timelines. There is the exit that turns endless circles into finished chapters. There is the redirect that refuses blame games and centers the only field where truth can operate, reality, not story. The point is not to memorize a set of phrases. The point is to inhabit a posture that no longer needs to be convincing to be clear. Sovereignty also has rhythm, not a checklist, a way of breathing. The day begins with a brief inventory of what feeds you and what reliably drains you, not to manage life like a spreadsheet, but to let awareness set your pace. The middle hours drift between work and relationship, and here sovereignty means refusing to make your nervous system a public device. You notice the flood of chemicals that makes everything urgent, and you do not hand it the keys. You notice old stories knocking at the door, and you greet them without letting them move in. The evening is where the quieter proof arrives, fewer rehearsed arguments in your head, more silence that does not scare you, less appetite for gossip because you know what it costs, a smaller table with fewer people and more depth. This architecture does not make you untouchable by building higher walls. It makes you untouchable by building a stronger center. People will push against it. Patterns protest when power returns to its owner. You will be told you have changed by people who mean you stopped being convenient. You will be called selfish by people who were thriving on your self-neglect. You will be accused of thinking you are better than us by systems that feel exposed when you raise your standard. These are not summons to court. They are echoes of a contract you no longer sign. Let the echo fade. The ones who can meet your center will learn the shape of your fences and find the gate. The ones who cannot will find another stage. Sacred isolation and the return as creator. When you withdraw energy from the wrong places, the first reward is not peace. It is a strange silence that makes you question yourself. You will check your phone and it will be quiet. You will open your calendar and it will have space. You will hear your inner critic louder for a while because activity used to drown it out. This is the detox phase. Do not mistake discomfort for misalignment. Jung wrote that individuation requires distance from the collective so you can hear your own voice. This is not banishment, it is a corridor. Call it sacred isolation, a span of time where you stop being a reactor and become a creator. Here you learn what your body feels like when it is not braced for the next request. Here you remember what you want when nobody is imposing a timeline. Here you rebuild your standard not on other people's needs but on your own values. You will lose people who only knew how to engage with your compliance. Let them go. You will confuse people who only recognized you by the role you played. Let them be confused somewhere else. You will grieve versions of yourself that were loved for their usefulness. Grieve, then bless them, then bury them. On the other side of this corridor, your presence will feel different inside your own skin. You will say no without writing a press release. You will say yes without secretly resenting the cost. You will sit in a room with someone else's big emotion and resist the urge to rescue them from the growth their emotion is trying to deliver. You will love people better because your love will no longer be a bargain you strike by disappearing yourself. Untouchable does not mean untouching. It does not mean you become a stone. It means you build a center so steady that storms can pass without rearranging your foundation. It means events and accusations and moods have to pass through your values before they get to touch your behavior. It means guilt is no longer a remote control anyone can pick up. The world will remain loud, but you will not be moved like furniture in other people's drama because you do not fund the noise. And then something quiet and unmistakable happens. Sleep returns. Your mind stops putting on trials that last until 3 a.m. Words become fewer and heavier because you speak to be clear, not to be tolerated. Gossip dies around you because your attention is expensive now and you spend it on creation, not corrosion. Your circle shrinks and deepens. You notice that loneliness no longer bites the way it used to because your own company is not an empty room anymore. This is the proof you were looking for without knowing it, not applause. Architecture. Be suspicious of any life that needs constant explanation. Trust the one that is felt without defense. If this meets you where you are, let your life answer the question rather than your mouth. Step back where you have been overstepping yourself. Hold silence where you used to rehearse a speech. Let a boundary stand without turning it into a sermon. Then watch who respects your pause and who panics when you do not perform. Watch your body unclench because it finally believes you will protect it. If this met you at the right time, write in the comments, "I choose my peace." Not as a slogan, as a line in the ground. The day you choose yourself without apology is the day you stop being easy to move. The day you stop being available for chaos is the day you become available for destiny. Practice in small, almost invisible ways. Delay one reaction. Feel one urge without acting. Let one silence do the speaking. This is how you become emotionally untouchable. Not by force, by center.